Thanks for tuning in, everybody. My name is Brock Page, and I do random sports picks for fun. You also might be surprised as to who I'm picking in the NBA today. If you just can't wait and you want to save yourself some time, check out my picks for this video in the description section below. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. A wise man once said, "Good ain't free, and free ain't good." If for some reason you decide to use the free information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. And with that said, let's get into some picks for the 22nd. First game I have for you, Charlotte at Orlando. The betting opened up with Charlotte as the 3.5-point favorites with the total points at an even 206. Since then, Charlotte's now -5 against the spread with the total points remaining at 206. Currently, Charlotte's laying 200 on the money line, and at the moment, 62% of the money's on Charlotte to get the job done. Speaking of Charlotte, they're facing an Orlando team who's covered just 10 of 35 games at home. They've also covered just 18 of 43 games against teams giving up more than 102 a game. In addition to all that, Orlando's failed to cover the spread in their previous 3 matchups with Charlotte. When it comes to the total points, Hornets games have gone under the line in their last 3 straight. On the other side, Orlando games have gone under the total posted points in 2 of their last 3. All that said, I'm in full agreement with the bettors as I am picking Charlotte -5 to get the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm taking the under 206. When it comes to the money line cash, I'm picking the Hornets to win. I'm also adjusting the line and taking Orlando +15 as the first pick in my 10-point super teaser. Next game, Indiana at Boston. The betting opened up with the Celtics as the 8.5-point favorites with the total points at 209. Since then, Boston's now -7.5 against the spread with the total points dropping down to 208.5. Currently, the Celtics are laying 340 on the money line, and at the moment, 66% of the money's on the Indiana Pacers to get the job done. Although most of the money's on the Pacers, they've struggled to cover against Boston, going 0-2 against the spread in their first 2 meetings. Indiana's also covering just 37% of their games on the road and just 33% at the current point spread. They're facing a Boston team who's successfully covered the spread in 3 of their last 5. Boston's also played in games going under the total posted points in 2 of their last 3. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick, and I am taking the Boston Celtics -7.5, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm in full agreement with the bettors as I am taking the under 208.5. And when it comes to the money line cash, I'm thinking Boston is going to win. I'm also adjusting the line, and I'm taking the under 218.5 as the second pick in my 10-point super teaser number 1. Next game, Detroit at Chicago. The betting opened up as a pick'em contest in the Windy City with the total points at an even 202. Since then, Chicago is now -1 against the spread with the total points dropping down to 199. When it comes to the spread, Detroit's had a rough go of things, covering just 29% as the official road underdog and just 28% in the second game of a back-to-back. They're facing a Chicago team who, before last night's action, covered 3 of their previous 4. In addition, Chicago games have gone under the line in 2 of their previous 3 games before last night's action. On the other side, Detroit's games have gone under the line in their previous 3 contests before last night's action. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick, and I am taking the Chicago Bulls -1, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors as I am taking the under 199. And when it comes to the money line cash, I'm picking Chicago to win. I'm also adjusting the line and taking Chicago +9 as the third pick of my 10-point teaser number 1. Next game I have for you, Philadelphia at OKC. The betting opened up with OKC as the 10.5-point favorites with the total points at 219. Since then, OKC's now -11 against the spread with the total points dropping down to 218. Currently, 60% of the money's on the Sixers to get the job done. Speaking of the Sixers, they're facing an Oklahoma City team who's covering an impressive 71% of their games as the official home favorite. OKC's also posted a record of 20-7 against the spread versus teams under 500. In addition to all that, OKC successfully covered the spread in 5 of their last 6. When it comes to the total points, both teams have played in games going over the line in 2 of their last 4. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick, and I am taking the Oklahoma City Thunder -11, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm taking the over, 218. When it comes to the money line cash, I think OKC wins this one outright. I'm also adjusting the line and taking the Sixers +21 as the 4th and final pick of teaser number 1. Next game, Atlanta +7 at Washington, with the total points jumping up to an even 214. Currently, 51% of the money's on Washington to get the job done. Speaking of Washington, they've done an exceptional job against marginal teams, covering a solid 72% of their games versus teams around 500. They're also 2-1 against the spread in their previous 3 meetings with the Hawks. They're facing an Atlanta team who's failed to cover the spread in their last 4 straight. On a side note, Atlanta's last 3 games have all gone under the total posted points. All that said, I am once again in full agreement with the bettors as I am taking the Washington Wizards -7, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm taking the under 214. And when it comes to the money line, I'm picking Washington to win this one outright. I'm also adjusting the line and taking the under 224 as the first pick of my 10-point teaser number 2. Next game, Cleveland -3.5 at Denver, with the total points dropping down to 228.5. Currently, the Cavaliers are laying 175 on the money line, and at the moment, 64% of the money's on the Cavs to get the job done. Speaking of the Cavs, they're facing a Denver team who's been pretty good against the number as of late, successfully covering in 3 of their previous 4. Denver also covers a solid 65% of their games at the current point spread. When it comes to the total points, Cleveland games have gone under the line in 2 of their last 3. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick, and I am taking the Denver Nuggets +3.5, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm in full agreement with the bettors as I am taking the under 228.5. And when it comes to the money line cash, no upset here. I'm taking the Cleveland Cavaliers, winning this one outright by the slightest of margins. I'm also adjusting the line and taking Denver +13.5 as the second pick of my 10-point teaser number 2. Next game, Milwaukee at Sacramento. The betting opened up with Milwaukee as the 4.5-point favorites, with the total points at 205.5. Since then, Milwaukee's now -3.5 against the spread, with the total points dropping down to 202.5. Currently, 75% of the money's on Sacramento to get the job done. Speaking of Sacramento, they're facing a Milwaukee team who's been pretty bad against the number as of late, covering just 1 out of their last 4 games. The Bucks are also covering just 37% of their games as the official road favorite. In addition to all that, Milwaukee's covered just 9 of 26 games versus teams under 500. Before last night's action, Milwaukee's previous 3 games had all gone under the total posted points. On the other side, Sacramento games have gone under the line in 2 of their previous 3. All that said, I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors as I am taking the Sacramento Kings +3.5, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors, and I am taking the under 202.5. And when it comes to the money line cash, oddly enough, I'm actually picking the Milwaukee Bucks to win this game outright by the slightest of margins. I'm also adjusting the line and taking Sacramento +13.5 as the third pick of teaser number 2. Next and final game for the show, it is going to be New York at Utah. The betting opened up with the Utah Jazz as the 10-point favorites, with the total points at 201.5. Since then, Utah is now -10.5 against the spread, with the total points jumping up to 203.5. Currently, 62% of the money's on the Knicks to get the job done. Speaking of the Knicks, they're facing a Utah team who struggled against the number as of late, failing to cover in 3 of their previous 4. The Jazz have also covered just 12 of 30 games as the official home favorite. In addition to all that, the Utah Jazz are covering a horrible 28% of their games at the current point spread. On a lighter note, Utah games have gone under the total posted points in 3 of their last 4 contests. All that said, I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors as I am taking the New York Knicks plus 10.5, getting the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm taking the under 203.5. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think the Utah wins this one outright by about 10 points. I'm also adjusting the line and taking New York plus 20.5 as the fourth and final pick of teaser number 2. Just a reminder, my 10-point Sweetheart Super Teasers pay 5 to 6 and get graded as a loss should any game result in a push. You can find this exotic wager in several online sports books and in the state of Delaware. Well, folks, that is going to do it for me. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. A wise man once said, good ain't free and free ain't good. If for some reason you decide to use the information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. Most importantly, if you're betting any of these games, do it safe, do it responsibly, and most important, have fun. For Brock Page Predictions and Sports Picks, I'm Brock Page, and have yourself a positive day.